before getting into the video, we have to talk about this. We just crossed 1,000 subscribers and oh my god, I am so happy. Firstly, thanks to all of you who subscribed. And secondly, most of you came from the vlog, so I know that you will probably not be interested in this particular video, so you can click off if you want, I won't mind. But before doing that, just leave me a quick question in the comments if you have any for me with the hashtag 1K Q&A so that I can make a Q&A video about this. And that's it for today. We'll just get into the video now. So since I made that video about cognitive science, I've been getting a lot of inquiries about COGJET. So in this video, I'll try to answer all of your questions and give some basic information about the exam and this year's pattern as well. But one quick disclaimer though, I have not given COGJET. My qualifying exam was GATE, but I took all the help from my classmates who have actually given COGJET last year, and all of the advice that you're getting is actually coming from them. So firstly, thanks you guys. I have the best classmates ever. So what is COGJET? If you don't know anything about this exam, don't worry, I'll explain that as well. So COGJET stands for Cognitive Science Joint Entrance Test, and it is usually conducted by IIT Kanpur, and it is the entrance exam that you have to give after your bachelor's. And through this exam, you will be eligible to apply for Cognitive Science Masters or PhD in one of these colleges, given that you are able to clear the cutoff set by these colleges as well. If you have no idea what cognitive science is, go and watch this video. Or this one, I think. It will be somewhere up here, okay? So let's talk about the eligibility for this exam. It's very lenient. You just need to be in the final year of your bachelor's, or you need to have completed your bachelor's to apply for this exam. But understand that just because you're eligible to write the exam does not mean you're eligible to apply for the Cognitive Science Masters or PhD in the colleges that I mentioned, because every college over here has their different criteria. So it is better if you go to the individual college's website and cross-check once. So let's talk about the important dates for this exam, and for that I'll go to the actual COGJET portal. So here it is. This is the Cognitive Science Joint Entrance Test 2021 portal. As you can see, organized by IIT Kanpur, and these are all the participating institutes. So over here you can go to this section, important dates, and as you can see, the start date for the application procedure has already started, and the last date for completing the procedure is 6th February 2021. You will get your admit cards on 10th Feb, and the date of the actual exam is 20th February 2021 from 10 to 1. So it is a 3-year exam. So when you go to the general information page, you will find all the information about the eligibility criteria, the test dates. The fees are given. So the fees are 300 rupees for category and female and PWD, and 500 for everybody else. Now, this is the main part, the nature of the test. So here is where things get a little tricky, because they have changed the pattern this year because of you know what, and this is the first time that they are conducting exam in this manner. Before this, all the COGJET exams would be in MCQ format, but this is the first time that they are conducting an exam like this, so let's just go over it. So the test will be completely online, and you can attempt it from any location including your home. All the details will be available on the admit card. This test will be very different from the standard entrance test. It will contain a small number of research papers and questions on them. The candidate will have to choose exactly one research paper and answer the questions associated with that paper. You will have to write your answers and upload them. The test does not have a syllabus, but will require elementary knowledge of psychology, neuroscience, maths, and programming. And the sample research paper and questions are available on the site. So this is all that they have said about the nature of the test, and as you can see, this is definitely not like any of the normal exams. So let's dissect this thing and go over all the points one by one again. The first thing they have said is that the test will be completely online and you can give it from anywhere. So that is just a code for open book test, but it is also a kind of exam where the open bookness will not really matter. So they are not going to ask questions which will require you to just go on Google and find the answer and you can just copy paste it. Their questions are going to be such that you will actually have to think and apply yourself. Let's talk about the syllabus. Over here, they have officially given that there is no specific syllabus, but you will require elementary knowledge of psychology, neuroscience, maths, and programming. Now, I understand that this sounds a little vague and open-ended, but I also feel that this is the best way that they could have framed it, because there actually is no fixed syllabus for this. But what I can do to help you is that I share with you the syllabus for COGJET 2019 and 2020, so that you can at least get a baseline for what they're expecting. So this is the official COGJET 2019 file. It's there on the Cognitive Science IIT Kanpur website. A lot of people said that it's not there, but it's there. I'll link it in the description below. So introduction, test details, blah blah blah. So over here you can see till last year the test was actually MCQ type. There were two parts, part 1 and part 2. Part 1 had questions related to reasoning ability, data interpretation, and reading comprehension. And the second part was based on maths, computation, psychology, hypothesis testing. So this was the pattern till last year. Now let's look at the syllabus that they have given. So they have given multiple subsections from this. You can just go over this file for yourself. I'll just talk a bit about what I feel is important. I feel that from maths, probability theory, conditional probability, Bayes theorem, all of this is very important. And programming is of course really important. If you have seen the sample question paper, then there was one complete question about writing a pseudocode. So you need to be familiar with all of this. So it's fine if you don't know any programming languages, but you need to be familiar with how pseudocodes are written, and you need to be familiar with all of these things mentioned over here. Variable types, declarations, assignments, and they have given the data structure as arrays. And I guess you won't be needing any more, but I suggest you also read a little bit about linked list if possible. And then basic algorithms like searching, sorting, all of these things. Also, one thing that they haven't given here but was there in the sample question paper was algorithmic complexity. So you need to know the basics of space complexity and time complexity as well. And as I've said, you don't really need to learn any programming language specifically. So since it is pseudocode, pseudocodes are independent of programming languages. So rather than wasting your time learning the syntax, focus on learning how pseudocodes are written and what is the logic of writing pseudocode. So all of these things, just Google them and you will get the information. You can just read up about them in brief. And I also think that some of these things are kind of factual as well. So I don't think they would directly ask things like what is Weber's law or Fechner's law or something. But I guess it is still good to know about all of these things. So read up about all of these things mentioned here. And another important thing is hypothesis testing. So read up about this as well. So let's talk about the books and the resources that you should use to prepare for this exam. Some of these books are directly recommended during the COGJET 2019, and I feel that they are still kind of applicable. So if you just scroll down at the very end of this PDF, you can see that they are recommending some books. So you can use all of these books. Other than that, I've asked my classmates for book recommendations and I'll link those in the description down below as well. So for basics of programming, they have said any 11th or 12th CBSE book, and I think that would be enough. But if you aren't able to access any of those, you can get like a basic introduction from, online sites such as Geeks for Geeks. And once you're familiar with all the basic things such as what are functions, what is recursion, what is iteration, what are conditions, if then else. Once you're familiar with all of that, then you can move on to pseudocode practice. And I'm sure that if you just type pseudocode practice for beginners or pseudocode practice generally, or even pseudocode practice for placements, then you will find a lot of free resources from where you can practice. But I'll still see if I am able to find any, and I'll link those in the description down below as well. Now let's talk a bit about the preparation strategy for the exam. As you can see by the pattern, this is a very different kind of an exam. If you think about it, it is kind of like an applied comprehension exam where you're reading the research papers and answering questions on it by applying different fields. Apart from the basic knowledge about all of these subjects, the main thing that they're trying to test is the verbal, logical, quantitative aptitude, your reasoning skills, your data interpretation skills. So if you're not good in any of these categories, try to practice some CAT level comprehension questions. I'm sure you will get a lot of resources for this also. But it is actually preferable if you're able to skip this step, or at least do this step along with the second step that I'm about to say, because there are just 20 days left for the exam. So the second point is read a lot of research papers. This is very important. As you can see, they have said that you have to choose one research paper. So firstly, they intend on giving multiple research papers, and from that you have to read and choose one. So obviously you need to get used to reading research papers, and the sample paper was 10 pages long. So in a 3-hour slot you have to read the research papers, you have to choose one, you have to solve the questions and upload the exam. So you need to have really good reading skills for that, and you also need to have good reading stamina as well. So try to get yourself as comfortable as possible with the scientific language from all of these domains. So read papers about all of these different domains such as psychology and neuroscience just to get yourself familiar with the kind of language that they are using. I would recommend reading at least one research paper every day. So by the time of the exam, you will have read 20 different research papers. Now, tips to look for the research papers. Firstly, use Google Scholar. Second, I feel that the papers will be such that they have concepts from all the domains, so psychology and stats and computation and neuroscience. But it is actually difficult to find such papers which has all of these. So what I would recommend is choose one domain every day and read a research paper about that. And I'm not promising anything, but I will try to find some research papers and link them in the description below. Now the third point is the most important one. You don't have to just read the research papers. You also have to make sure that you're understanding what they're saying. So go through the questions that are being asked in the sample question paper and try to form similar kind of questions for yourself. So cross-question yourself and make sure that you have understood what the paper is about at micro and macro level. Another thing you can do to increase your understanding is try to summarize the paper in your own words, or if it is too long to summarize, then you can try to explain that paper to somebody else. Now it doesn't have to be an actual person, but you can just go through the motions as if you're explaining it to somebody else. And in that process, you will actually understand if you have really understood the paper or not. Now, a couple of tips that I can think of while giving the actual exam is, firstly, they have said that you have to choose exactly one research paper. So I guess they will be uploading 2 to 3 research papers. So maybe the first thing that you can do is actually go over the questions first, and then based on the questions and based on the weightage, you can maybe choose the research paper which actually has more questions from your area of expertise. Otherwise, if all the papers have similar type of distribution, then you can see if you are able to find anything familiar with any of the papers. Maybe some of the concepts are familiar, maybe you are more comfortable with some of the questions. So that should help you in choosing the research paper. Now the second thing is, I don't know if you will have enough time to read all the research papers. You can kind of get an approximation from the research papers that you have been reading for the past few days. So whatever 10-20 research papers that you have read, try to time yourself and try to read them in one single sitting and record how much time you're taking to read an approximately 7 to 10 pages research paper. So based on that time, you will know if you will have enough time to read complete multiple papers in the exam. And if you feel like you will not be able to read multiple complete papers in the exam, then use the first strategy that I've mentioned. Read the questions first, and the second strategy is read the abstract and the summary, and from that you should understand the nature of the research paper so you can choose the one that you are most familiar with or you are most comfortable in. I have been talking for so long that my SD card got full and I had to change it. But I think I'm almost done. I can't think of any more points to add to this, but if I do think of any, then I'll maybe write it in the description below. And yeah, that was it for this video. I know it was a bit too long, but I hope that it was useful to all of you guys who are giving COGJET this year. And if you have any doubts, you can just drop it in the comments down below. I reply to all the comments. And one last very important thing is, do not stress about it. Try your best, be as calm as possible throughout this whole process. Do not stress about anything and understand that it is not the end of the world. And I will add all the resources that I've mentioned in this video in the description and the pinned comment as well. So that's me signing off, and I will see you next week.